Hello.
How are you doing then, Arlo?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, I feel like I've had a busy few weeks, as we were talking about before,
Mm,
but it's been wonderful to kind of have the music out in the world and just be able to like take stock of all the amazing things that have happened this year.
mm.
How are you? You said you've been busy as well. What have you been working
Yeah.
on?
Well, I had a fairly bonkers couple of weeks because of obviously I was doing stuff with Sybil for Independent Venue Week. Thanks,
Hmm.
Mum. My mum's bought me in a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Um, because I basically I've moved down with my parents for the time being. Just
Hmm.
when they announced the second lockdown, I was like, right, I've got to make sure that I'm going to be around people just to keep myself a bit stable.
Mm.
And so I haven't been in Bristol for like nearly 3 months, apart
Mm.
from on a couple of times, and that was because I had to launch. I originally was going to have an exhibition last year of
Mm.
like paintings I'd done, and then obviously that's also like we've launched that online, and it's just
Mm.
been like kind of go. Just been watching it, just like go, wow, okay. I've been having to do definitely the most amount of interviews I've ever done in my entire life. And
Mm.
then like the other thing is that um I is a I had to go down and sign a load of prints as well.
Hmm.
So I was like pinching myself, going like, this is definitely, like one of those sorts of things. Every few months it'll happen to me where I'll have to stop and I'll have to just like pinch myself and go, right, okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, have you been so it's an exhibition of the paintings that you've kind of done. Is it over like the last year? So like was it over 2019, the paintings you've done, or just like a lifetime of all of the work that you've done?
Just like mostly stuff over the past 5 years, really.
Mm.
So like I did, so some of them are musicians, um, and some of them are like kind of abstract faces because I really like painting faces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so like sometimes it very much depends on the day as to what I paint.
Mm.
I very much like, I guess it's a bit like you with the songwriting,
Mm. Yeah,
like,
definitely. I mean, oh sorry, go on.
yeah. So it's just feeling that, so I think that you've got to kind of express whatever mood you're feeling, really.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that there is something very I mean, it's kind of, I find myself writing based off of instinct. Like,
Mm,
you just wake up and you have a certain feeling and you're like, for me with writing, I'll be like, oh, okay, I really feel inspired by nature. Or, oh, I want to make a track like this or like
yeah.
that. And so every day it kind of turns out different.
I think that's the thing is that, like for me with music and art, it's about capturing that feeling and about
Mm,
like kind of how you bring it across. And I
I
think
mean,
that, like kind of, I think sometimes it's actually like kind of much more cathartic than people realize.
no, I definitely agree. I think that there is this beauty. And also, I guess because you're painting at gigs as well, there is
Yeah.
a beauty in like capturing how the music made you feel in that moment. So I
Mm.
guess every
Oh, hello, hello.
mm,
Sorry, it just froze a little bit
hello.
there. Hello.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you
Okay,
perfectly fine.
cool. But yeah, I was just saying like each painting is kind of for you when you're painting at gigs. I guess it's
Mm.
almost like a time capsule of how that specific evening made you feel and how the performance was. And I guess I was going to ask, do you have a favorite gig that you've ever painted?
Yeah.
Like,
But in terms of ones which I painted, I think um, people like JPEG Mafia because it was so fun because of the whole crowd, and then also like seeing people's expect like faces when I produced my sketchbook, like whilst everyone's kind of like flying around me, and then like I also like kind of seeing like Beverly Glen Copeland as well,
mm,
and just because of like I remember that because sometimes I get obviously like I drew you and I got you'd sign your portrait and
mm,
I think he's actually said something which is that that basically I captured the mother's eyes sort of
mm,
thing, and so she really looked at it. I was like, wow, okay, and that
mm.
really did, like kind of because when you hear stuff like that, it does emotively affect you.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, do you have, so you mainly go to like gigs just like in Bristol, like around where you live? Do you have any favorite venues?
Pretty much. I mean, like venues I grew adapted to. I don't know about you, because I was going to ask you exactly the same question, really. But for me, the Louisiana is a big one. Which, just because it's a great sounding room, it's a small 150 capacity space. I know I kind of like, and places like the Exchange, I guess, like it's partly because I've been there so many times that I kind of get treated like family.
Mm,
I mean, I don't
yeah.
know about you. What kind of venues did you kind of grow up with?
I guess I grew up with, basically there's this venue called the Basement Door, which is in Richmond. And it's this tiny, tiny venue. And basically all the kids who were growing up around me, who were either in bands or just like, you know, finding their feet, like people would always come through to play, and it would be on a Friday evening. I would go down there and like everyone would be there. I would just bring my friends along. And again, it was this sense of like, it felt like a community, like everyone knew everyone, and it just felt like this safe space that you could come to, like, you know, after school. And I didn't even know what a sound check was. Like I was just completely, you know, that was my first experience of performing, and I have such fond memories of that time, because that was where I realized that gigs, it's more than like a venue, it's almost like
Yeah,
a home, you know, in some ways.
exactly. I mean, like there's some people who I've met who actually do live in their venues, and it's like kind of and it's like, so it's the same with the Louisiana. Like the family actually lives upstairs, and then you've got places in Bristol like the Exchange where every single one of them's either in a band or they're like kind of actively DIY promoting, or you know, they're kind of it's very like kind of like it kind of encompasses the local community. So they can like sometimes they'll have nights for people like of LGBT. They'll have like they've actually been running courses, like whether it be like sound engineering, go to like kind of singing workshops and stuff, or people who like kind of, I guess, identify as non-binary.
Yeah, and I mean, for you, like, I was curious about, like, when did it all start? Like, when did you realize that gigs for you were this kind of place of like joy and where you felt safe?
I think it was like probably the mid-90s, just when I started to experience the thrill of it, really. And it was like, I guess that I didn't really take accountability of it necessarily being a safe space till probably my mid-20s, till like I'd say my early 20s. I'd say definitely in my teenage years, I'd be like kind of trying to nag my parents and giving me lifts to places because I wanted to go and see a band, you know, and like kind of, because I lived out right now in the middle of the Cotswolds. I mean, like, so like I quite often would like kind of go, oh look, there's this band playing in either Gloucester or Bristol. You've got friends there, haven't you? Like, like try and give them, you know, they kind of like try and tug their hand sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember the first ones that you went to? Like, is there one defining gig that you can remember that was a moment where you were like, damn, okay, music is like a powerful, something that I really enjoy? Or even the first gig that you painted, do you remember that?
Yeah, I mean the first gig I definitely, which had a major impact on me, would have been Ashton Court Festival, which was a community festival in Bristol back in 1995, and Skunk Anansie. And because I was 12 years old at the time, I remember being lost in amongst the crowd, and just like because of like basically my mum and my sister got really angry with me because I wasn't at their supposed meeting point. And then like what happened is that I got to the space, but I thought it was like kind of in my time sort of thing, because at the time I was obsessed with fossil collecting and with shells and stuff, and I liked music, but I wasn't necessarily totally like kind of drawn into it fully by that point. And I just remember kind of being at the meeting point, and my mum and my sister being nowhere near, and I was like, you know, kind of in the festival car park, and then I'd be like, right, okay, I wonder if they're through there, and then just I found myself kind of up on the hillside watching this band, which just had really powerful rock noise with with like a kind of, you know, like almost like a soulful vocal,
Mm,
and I was like, wow. And then
mm.
actually, when you think about it, when you're kind of like 12 years old, your brain's still a bit of a sponge.
Yeah.
And so like when you're hearing someone who's like a kind of black bisexual singing kind of really kind of openly like kind of quite aggressive and challenging songs, it's like, wow.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you're so right. I think those first gigs that you go to when you're younger, or even just those first experiences of music,
Mm,
like I feel like they kind of stay with you in a way. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I remember I went to see my first gig actually. I was like pretty old. I mean, I was 15,
Mm.
and I saw Loyal Kana at Shepherd's Bush. And I
Oh, he's really
remember,
good.
yeah, yeah. And like having, you know, like when you're at a gig and you can feel like the bass in your feet and like that sense of collective energy of
Mm,
everyone singing together. Like there was something so incredible about it, and I'll never
yeah.
forget how I felt during that first gig. And then I just kind of threw myself into music completely. And even playing my first shows where I heard someone singing back to me, you know, when I did my UK tour, going
Yeah.
to like King Tut's in Glasgow, or you know, the Bodega in Nottingham, all
Mm.
these places, it just feels like this place of like connection, and everyone's just there to like enjoy the music. I don't know, I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I definitely feel that as well. I mean, like there's some acts which I'll go and see because of I know that no matter whatever mood I'm in, you know, that like they'll always transport me somewhere. It's
Mm,
like whether it's like kind of stuff which will make me feel good or
mm,
stuff which is like designed to be more challenging.
mm.
You know,
Yeah.
so like one of my kind of I guess go-to bands is a band called Low,
Mm,
and I always find myself singing along with them, like kind of trying to harmonize with them. And
mm,
there's something about the voices whenever they sing
mm,
it, just like literally, it's almost like plucking heartstrings.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I've got like, there are so many bands for me that have that effect where it's like, you know, that no matter what mood you're in, you'll be like moved in some way and you'll
Mm,
almost be transported into another space. I mean, I remember seeing Julia Jacqueline,
yeah,
um and like and it was so like, you know, the band were there of course, but they were almost just like supporting her vocal, and her voice was just like soaring, and
mm,
I felt like I was floating. It was incredible. And like the power of being like moved to tears by a voice as well. I don't know, there's
yeah.
something very magical about it.
Well, it really is because of it's like kind of sometimes with a few things you can go right. I'm emotionally prepared. It's like no, you're not. It's like kind of because of like I mean that's how I describe low. It's like kind of it's like right, okay, you're going to get emotionally overwhelmed, and it's like kind of even people like Sharon Van Etten sort of thing. And
Mm,
the thing is, the reason why I missed Julia Jacqueline the last time she was in Bristol was because Sharon Van Etten was playing on the same night.
mm.
And it's like, and I've got nothing against Julia Jacqueline at all, but come on, you can't beat Sharon at doing
I
that kind of
mean,
sort of thing.
her voice, like I got so into listening to that record, Remind Me Tomorrow,
Mm,
over the last year. And like I saw a video of her performing 17 at Glastonbury, and like the way, you know, that moment where she just like kind of like screams the words, and it's
yeah.
just so like there's such like a power to her. Like I really want to see her live.
Oh
Is
man,
there
she's
any...
amazing. I mean, I've had the pleasure of seeing her maybe 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
But then that's because of like because I seen her. Let me think. Twice in 2012, so I would have seen her at Primavera Sound
Mm.
and the Thackler in Bristol, and then like it's pretty much like right, okay. Whenever she comes anywhere near me, it's like you could kind of almost guarantee where I'm going to be. And I mean, like I think there's one particular show that I saw her play at a venue called the Trinity, which is a really stunning venue in Bristol. If you ever
Hmm.
get to play like kind of like venues of about 500-600 capacity, it's like
Hmm.
an old converted church which they've converted into like a community centre,
Mm.
and means the sound in there is absolutely like A class.
Mm.
Um, and she played a show there, and it's like she was playing How Could I Love You More, and I just saw this really magical moment with this couple like properly embracing, and then like, because I've been like kind of semi singing along, but then like having the mic being passed out to the audience but by like the backing singer, and like it's like, right, okay, you can
Wow.
definitely feel it was like kind of high emotional kind of tenderness sort of thing.
Wow. I mean, I feel like those are the moments. Like there are always these moments, I think, at gigs where like the stars kind of align and
Mm.
like there's that little moment of magic that you can kind of like treasure forever. I mean, is there anyone you haven't seen yet that you really want to see?
Oh yeah, I mean, like especially, I mean, like I think there's people like I'd love to see Erica Badu at some point,
Mm.
but I've never really had the opportunity to. Or there's, I think there are definitely. I mean, all those like kind of bands I've yet to hear. So
Mm.
it's like I think that there's always going to be, if people are still out there making art, then I'm still going to want to kind of give them a go and like go
Mm.
check it out sort of thing.
Mm, yeah. And I mean, I guess the beautiful thing as well about like things like festivals is that you can just like wander into a tent, somebody you've never ever heard before, and
Yeah,
like just completely fall in love. Like I think that's what I miss, just being able to like potter about and you hear something that sounds appealing and you just kind of go and see where the day takes you. I think that's what I love about festivals.
whereas admittedly I'm someone who'd get out the festival program and get and strategically plan my entire day, because I get I'm that kind of obsessive. It's like when I have to explain to people about like my
Mm,
OCD tendencies, it's like, right, okay, it's like sometimes look at my Twitter feed, look at what I'm mostly listing up. Oh, look, it's a list of gigs which are happening in town, sort of thing. And it's like kind
mm.
of,
Do you think
what's that? You
Oh,
just
sorry,
say?
no, I was just gonna ask, do you think there's oh wait, I've just lost my thought. My thought just it evaporated. Sorry, you
What
go
happened?
on.
I mean, I was going to ask you actually, like when it came to like kind of songwriting for your album. Sorry to change tack. I mean, I really love. I mean, like, well, one song which I think has hit a note with loads of people has been Black Dog, and I think
Mhm.
it's really interesting that actually you bring in food into the dynamics of like kind of depression, of how you can lift yourself out of it,
Mm,
sort of thing.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that with that song and with all the songs on the record as well, like a lot of the lyrics are just, you know, like sentences lifted out of conversations with
Mm,
people that I know and love, like that idea of I remember saying that to my friend, just being like, have you taken your meds? You need
yeah,
to eat something. Do you feel like fruit? I like let's just go for a walk to the end of the road and like try and I
yeah,
guess the reason why I think maybe that it connected is because I kind of tried to focus on those little moments of like tenderness or kindness that you
mm,
can show to somebody that like kind of means more than in that moment, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
I completely understand that, because like I've known exactly like kind of, I mean, like I've known exactly for myself, like as if in one of the things which my parents do will do is if I'm feeling down, is they'll go, right, have you eaten? Have you, like kind of have you cooked yourself a good meal? And
Mm,
actually, the importance of kind of having even that, just that few moments of self-care actually really
mm,
can change, like the whole mindset as well.
I agree. And do you feel like is going to gigs then a kind of form of self-care to you? Like, do you feel like it's something that lifts you out of
Yeah,
low moments?
yeah, it
Mm,
really does. I've really found it, because of like it's also given me, spaces to be around people.
mm,
And then when you're in like kind of, so I think of gigs as being like very controlled environment,
mm,
and that I realized that I really struggle with social environments that I can't control.
mm,
And so like when it comes to gigs, you'll know quite often, you'll know the stage time, you'll know the door time sort of thing.
mm,
It's got to be over by 11
mm,
usually, unless you're going on to like a kind of club nighty thing afterwards, or
mm,
like kind of I mean, I found myself kind of getting to a point especially in Bristol, because like most of the venues are really close together, that I'd be sprinting from one show to another, and that sometimes I'd be literally tearing my hair out because I'd be like going like, okay, I've got to be here, got to be here, and it'd be like kind of almost like descending to like Superman level.
I love that. I love that. Do you think like, is there something I was thinking as well, like when you choose like what when you choose gigs, like is there something specific that you look for in a performer? Like is there a specific kind of gig that you like the most? Like do you prefer those kind of quite raucous ones, or do you gravitate towards more intimate ones, or is it just like whatever kind of makes you feel?
It kind of varies, so it depends on what mood I'm in the mood for. So sometimes if it's like kind of like really hectic and intense, then you know, like it depends a bit on my mood. But there are certain artists which I've earmarked and gone, right, okay, you're going on the ever increasing list of artists I'll never miss unless I'm dead. You know, and it's like, you know, I could turn up to some shows, and this might sound a bit arrogant, but it'd be like kind of, because I didn't have a ticket, I'd be like kind of, right, I would turn up at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'd like kind of semi sculpt the artist outside the venue sort of thing. Because if my determination was like, right, I'm getting into the show. I want to be in, you know, even if someone comes up with a spare ticket for sale, I'll nab it off their hands. Of like the kind of artist comes out and speaks to me, then you know, or like sometimes I'd be too awkward to actually approach them. I had to wait for them to approach me, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, do you have any like who are your, other than Low, who are kind of like your musical heroes? Like who are your favorites?
Oh God, I mean, like my favorites, I really love. There's a band called Trans Am, who are like a kind of Chicago-y kind of experimentally, slightly proggy kind of outfit, but they can like vary from like kind of prog krautrock through to like kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like they're a band which basically opened a lot of doors for me sonically. I really liked them. I really liked stuff like Asian Dub Foundation and like and a lot of the crossover stuff from the late 90s. Basically, I could probably sit here all day and just like go, I really like them, I really admire them for that, I really admire this person, you know, and like I think you could probably do the same.
Yeah, no, I mean for sure. I think especially in this time that we're living, like because I collect vinyl, I've just been like sitting and listening to albums like every day. I get so much joy out of finding new things that just like strike a chord, because you know when you hear that song that you've never heard before and suddenly it's like something clicks and you're like, wow, this is exactly what I needed to hear in that moment. So I've been I mean, yeah, no, my list of heroes is like endless, because it kind of depends on the day as well. Like sometimes it will be, you know, Radiohead, sometimes it will be Massive Attack, sometimes it will be, I mean, I think what's beautiful about it is like you can find something in so many different genres, different types of lyrics, voices, performers. I think that's what's wonderful about music as a whole, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like there's a few things where like kind of like sometimes I turn up to shows which people wouldn't expect me to turn up to, sort of thing. I'll be like going, no, this is because this person wrote this song and it really connected with me, or like or like sometimes I'll like kind of take a punt on things just because I like the sound of someone's name. And actually, you know, like kind of, I think that actually sometimes that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Sometimes making judgments based on seeing a name in print, because otherwise I think there's some artists which I probably wouldn't have discovered if it hadn't been for a few of my friends going, no, come and see and experience this.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think there's a difference then between going to gigs by yourself and going with friends? Like,
yeah, I think there can be, but I think that also what I found is that I started to recognize everyone because in the audience, because I turn up on my own, but there was especially in places like the Louisiana, we used to have like almost a gang of us called the regulars, and it'd be like every single picture there you could see the outlines of our bodies, you know, right along the front.
Oh, I love that. I love
You know,
that. That's
yeah,
wonderful though, because you're kind of part of like especially I guess the fact that it's like kind of in your city, you become like almost part of the venue itself, part of its like
Yeah,
lifeblood.
I feel very flattered and honoured in that way because of like I mean, like I've had things like the Fleece for a while. They named a stone after me because I had my one regular spot that I would go to, and I think
Wow.
that and I think that it's that sometimes, you know, like I said, depending on shows, but I'll sometimes go to certain gigs because of the venue, and I'll
Mm,
nearly always have, you know, like a certain spot that I'll go to pretty much almost every time. Unless
mm,
it's like a kind of seated show, which I'll be given, you know, whichever seat reservation on the ticket
mm,
sort of thing. But
mm,
nearly always like the Louisiana, partly because I'm quite a big guy, and so I like to like sort of tuck myself on in front of the PA stack, so I can still be
mm,
down the front, and I can still like, but I won't necessarily be blocking everyone's views.
mm. I mean, I remember at Rough Trade,
Yeah,
I remember you being, so if I was there, you were like there on the left. I
yeah,
remember on the left of me. Yeah, yeah. I
and
remember that.
I think
Oh,
that's partly because I don't necessarily want to block everyone's views because I admit that I'm kind of quite big,
no.
and then also like if it's sometimes like a really lively show because I've
Mm,
got like kind of dyspraxia, so I don't so I sometimes struggle with mosh pits.
mm,
But whereas I still like to kind of like headbang, but still I like to be on the edge
mm,
of things really.
mm,
And I think that you know like so like if I was at the exchange, I'd be like on the left hand side because that's where there's the most space.
mm.
And sometimes it'd be like kind of getting into these habits of like turning up to shows early, but then like not really knowing people, but then it'd be like, right, okay, here's my space. If people want to come and say hello to me, they've got to come into my space.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I guess it's like, have you made a lot of friends just from like going to gigs and just
Oh,
ending up
loads.
chatting to people?
Yeah,
Mm,
basically, that's how I've made all my friends.
mm.
Pretty much, it's just been like kind of even the people who I mistakenly thought were my friends in the first
Oh,
place. You know,
I
because
like
like especially if it's just, sometimes it's quite easy, especially when you're younger, for like to mistake people's identity,
mm,
sort of thing. And just like it's just been through sheer persistence. I think it's
mm.
just like kind of is how I've kind of inadvertently ended up making friends with people, then having things go quite bonkers, really.
Mm, yeah, and I mean, I want to know more about this exhibition. So, you like, what is it? So it's all the paintings that you've made in the last
Yeah,
5 years, and is
5 6
there a
years.
kind of theme or like what's the title of it?
It's called Welcome to My World because most people know me for like the gig going world, but they don't know me for like the arts and the other
Mm,
side so much. And so we've done like kind of, so I've done over 100 oil paintings.
wow,
Like I've got a few here, which I've actually haven't shown people because
wow.
even since I've like been down in Plymouth, it's like, right, okay, how do I express myself? I've got to be creative,
Mm.
and whether people like it or not, I'll get you a couple. Here's a couple of like smaller paintings I've done. Um, so here's like a self-portrait I did. I don't know if you can
Oh
see that very well.
wow, I can see that. Yeah, I love that slither of light blue above the eye.
Yeah,
Mm,
I guess it's like trying to capture, you know, like the shading on the eyes,
mm,
because
mm,
like because obviously because of like shading and skin color's not always entirely the same.
mm.
And I did this as much more of like my abstracty
Ah,
kind
I
of
like
face.
that a lot. I love that shape that's just coming under the, is it a tear or is it just a shape?
It's kind of like it's kind of partly what you make it want to be, but then also like it is kind of semi a tear, but it's also a body at the same time.
Yeah, no, exactly. Oh yes. I didn't even see that.
But then it's like but it's like kind of it's just like sort of things which I play around with. So it's like kind
Mm,
of because I come from quite a creative family. I mean,
mm.
do you come from a creative family yourself?
No, not at all. No. Like my parents, they like enjoy music, but nobody in my family that I can think of has been in like a creative career, to be honest.
Wow. But I mean,
Mhm.
like not even like a necessarily a career, but do they like kind of make their own art?
No, not at all. Like I was the only one who had any interest in like writing, painting, like making music, playing instruments. Like my dad picked up the saxophone for like 2 weeks when he was 18. I think that's
Wow.
that's the extent of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like, because I must admit, that some of these paintings, I mean, like, because my gran was a tapestry artist,
Mm,
and so like I come from, admittedly, of quite a creative family.
yeah.
I would say because my mum's really creative, and I mean, she went to like kind of art college sort of thing,
Mm,
and my gran was a really well-known like tapestry artist
mm,
down in Devon, and so some of the paintings I've done, I've been using her oil paints. And
okay.
so like, because if it was just basically like, because I've been working with a few different art organizations over the
Hmm.
years, and I just remember one Christmas just asking for some basically whatever people wanted to hand me art materials, and so she gave me a massive box full of like kind of old oil paints and like kind of
Mm,
like sketchbooks and stuff,
mm.
like one Christmas, and it kind of all started from there, really.
Oh, I mean, honestly, painting is like the one I do a little bit of drawing, just like doodling when I'm listening to albums and stuff, but
Mm,
I've always wondered like how like so you just got the material and
yeah,
you just started. You just like painted
pretty
what you
much.
felt.
I kind of like was then like I kind of realized that quite a lot of it is also like kind of, I don't know what about like with you with songwriting, whether you notice that you change your mood quite a lot if you feel that something's going the right way.
No,
And so
definitely.
like I used like kind of sometimes if I was feeling in a really aggressive down mood, then I would like, right, okay, I have to paint because I've got to get this thing out of me because I've got to get
Mm,
out the negativity,
mm.
and then like it'd be like, so sometimes I'd also mix, because I sometimes mix words into paintings as well,
Okay.
because of like I was really inspired by a lot of beat poetry.
Oh, so was I. So was I. That's how
Massively.
yeah, like I started off, I remember reading, I think it was probably like Howl by Allen Ginsberg, or maybe it was like a Burroughs painting, a poem, sorry. And like that's what got me into poetry because
Mm,
there was such a sense of like freedom to it. Like it just, I always thought of poetry as at school, you learn Shakespeare or something and it's very structured, but
mm,
the beat poets is just almost like an avalanche and it's kind of quite, you can tell that they're just writing based off of like intuition or raw feeling, and that's what I love about them.
yeah, the same here. I mean, like that's the reason why like it kind of I got into like obviously a lot of the contemporary beat poets like Scroobius Pip and Kate Tempest,
Mm,
or Kai Tempest as we should call her now,
mm,
and people like Saul Williams as well,
mm,
massively, and like B. Dolan and Sage Francis, really.
mm,
And then like it was kind of like, so I did like, so I found myself attending writing groups where I was trying to imitate them
mm,
to a certain extent.
mm.
I mean, have you ever found yourself imitating, like, to a certain extent, artists that you really like?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of writing, definitely. And actually, no, in terms of songwriting, for sure, because sometimes the beauty is that you never will really be able to completely emulate something. So you kind of aim for it and you end
Yeah,
up with like your version of whatever you were trying to go for, Like
yeah.
I remember like when I was making the record, I would make these kind of playlists and I'd be like, okay, I want to make something that has like a hint of In Rainbows, but it
Yeah.
also has a bit of Portishead, but also a bit of this, and kind of creating this fusion that almost turned into like just something unique, I guess.
Hmm. I mean, have you ever had, like kind of, I guess, reaction from any of your heroes about some of the work that you've done?
Yeah, no, I definitely have. Like, I mean, even just earlier now when I was talking to Philip Selway from Radiohead, and that was like a big moment for me. I was very starstruck because I love Radiohead to bits. And let me think. I mean, also being able to speak to Sharon Van Etten was a big one because she's a big
Oh God,
hero of mine.
I'd,
And
I'd be too nervous. I'd be too scared.
no, she's so lovely. She's like the loveliest person ever. Like she just kind of she just said that she liked my tunes and like she was listening to my record, and I'm of course like an extremely big fan of her, so that was incredible. And just, yeah, I mean, I think the beautiful thing is that like artists are just creative people, and
Yeah.
like everyone I've met has been so lovely and open and like welcoming, which has been like,
I mean, I speak as a fan, but like kind of like I find that, you know, if I find an artist really approachable, then I like their work even more, because it is that sort of like, it's almost like an endorphin thing. Whereas if you find an artist to be kind of like cold or arrogant, then it can really put you off.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, there's such like a humanity and a warmth to music that when you feel that from the person creating it as well, I think it makes it even more special. You feel even more connected to the work.
I mean, like, because I semi pinch myself because when I'm in Bristol, one of my neighbours is John Parrish,
Oh wow.
and I
Wow.
had one of the most awkward star spotting moments in front of him and PJ Harvey.
Oh my
And it
goodness.
was literally like one of those moments which I probably told loads of people on these chats, but it was like, you know, that sort of thing where you do get genuinely really awkward, and you
Oh
do
yeah.
kind of like find yourself semi freaking out and like trying to act calmly around people.
Yeah.
It was one of those.
Oh goodness. I
It
mean,
was just like, I mean, I pretty much freaked and almost fainted in front of her.
oh no. Oh no.
Because I'm like, but the thing is that when it's someone that you've kind of idolized for so many years, and you see them completely out of the blue in a place, which in reality I probably should have semi-expected her to be there, because it was like a kind of like David Lynch tribute show that Nick
Okay.
Harvey was playing in,
Mm.
and so I probably should have semi-expected like PJ to be there, but it was the case of like kind of after the show finishing, getting up, turning around, and having John Parrish go, "Oh, hi, Jeff," and he's really lovely. But I mean, like, I just like see her stood next to her, me freaking out, then like kind of almost tripping over a chair to like kind of
Oh
form a confetti
no.
from Savages.
Oh goodness. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's a special moment in itself though. I feel like when you chat to a hero or when you see a hero, I don't know, there's like I've definitely had some of those moments like backstage at festivals where I've just kind of like almost just I always just like melt back into the try and become part of the furniture and just like, oh, okay.
I try to, but I can't. I'm
Oh
too
yeah.
big. I'm too recognizable by the hair. And then
Yeah.
like kind of I find it also like because of like my dyspraxia as well sometimes kicks in. And
Mm.
so it's like when I do get that awkwardness, sometimes I go ultra clumsy.
Oh no. Oh bless you.
Hence me tripping over the chair in front of PJ Harvey, almost in front of PJ Harvey. You
Oh
know,
man.
because
Oh
like,
man.
but then it's like, but then actually I think that, you know, in those moments they might be embarrassing, but also at the same time, when you look back and go, no, that's a humanizing
Of
kind of
course,
thing.
of
So they probably
course.
would have felt the same.
Of course, of course. I'm completely with you on that one. And it's like, and music is such a powerful, like, especially those artists who have like lifted you out of, you know, deep dark moods or ones that have been like important to you for a very long time. I think
Mm.
it makes sense that you'd kind of have that moment of like, oh my goodness, they're standing right there, you know?
You know, or like kind of like the first time I went to a Public Enemy sort of thing. I
Mm.
remember exactly the same thing, and I was like kind of I remember like kind of because the very next day I had to go to I was at Access to Music, which is like a music college in Bristol,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're doing like a kind of national field trip the day afterwards, and so I had to turn up to the venue with like with like bags full of food, which I had to go and hide up in the kind of like in the cloakroom area. But I just remember like kind of being pretty much on the barrier and just like it was almost
Wow.
and just almost screaming back some of the words right down the microphone sort of thing, and it was just like, wow, okay.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
And I
Listen,
think
Jeff,
that,
I'm gonna have to go in like 1 minute because I've got an interview at 5:45.
oh
I've got
wow,
another Zoom. Yeah,
oh
yeah,
man,
yeah.
it's such a lovely, so lovely to see you, Arlo.
Yeah, no, it's been so lovely to like talk to somebody as well who like just shares this complete love of art. I feel like I've been missing out on those kind of conversations, especially in those times. So thank you.
It must get really difficult when you're like and obviously doing interviews because you're probably going, okay, this person's got an angle on this. this
Mm,
person's got an angle to come from, sort of thing.
yeah, and the conversations just aren't as like free flowing and lovely as this. It's more just like, you know, me like breaking apart my songs. That's why this has been so refreshing.
Yeah. Well,
Hmm.
I really hope, and thank you, because this conversation has also helped lift my day as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm
Just
glad.
because like I was feeling like I've been feeling a bit grotty for the past couple of days, so having this has been like, wow. Thank you,
Oh,
Arlo.
oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. Thank you so much. I hope you have a lovely evening.
Yeah, you too. Look after yourself.
Same to you. Bye bye, Jeff.